Yesterday, Sayadaw was explaining on the commentary on the definition of kusala as yatthava kusa ubhayabhaga gatam hatha padesam lunanti evami mepi upana nupana bhavena ubhayabhaga gatam kilesa pakha lunanti kasama kusa viya lunanti tipi kusala. So it is the commentator defining the definition of kusala. So just as kusa, a kind of grass which has two edges. So if a person holds the grass, then the person will have cuts on both sides of the internal side of the hand. So just as the kind of grass can cut two sides of the internal part of the hand, in the same way, kusala dhamma, wholesomeness, can overcome two kinds of kilesa, namely Uppana kilesa, which means the kind of defilement that has arisen in the past, and Anapana kilesa, the kind of defilement that will arise in the future. So in the same way, in the future. So that's why this wholesomeness can overcome these two kinds of defilements. That's why it is called kusala. And yesterday, Sayadaw did not finish on the definition, so today Sayadaw will continue to explain. So kusa is a kind of grass. So people who come from the countryside, the Burmese people who come from the countryside will know what kind of grass it is. Sayadaw himself comes from a village, that's why Sayadaw knows this kind of grass very well. So kusa is a kind of grass that has sharp edge. So kusa has two sharp edges that can cut the hand. So if a person holds the grass, then the person will get cut on two sides of the hand because the grass has two sharp edges. Sayadaw himself had cut his hand with this kind of grass, so Sayadaw is familiar, and Sayadaw knows this from his experience. So the city folks who are not familiar with this kind of grass can take the example of a blade which has two sharp edges. So if a person holds a blade that has two sharp edges, then the person will have cuts on both sides of his or her hand. So this example is very obvious. So when the grass is held, either on purpose, either deliberately or undeliberately, the person is sure going to get two cuts in the hand. So in the same way, when a person is developing kusala, wholesomeness, she can overcome uppana akusala, the kind of unwholesomeness that has arisen in the past. So when one says one can overcome the kind of unwholesomeness that has arisen in the past, it doesn't mean that one removes it deliberately, but by developing wholesomeness, unwholesomeness will automatically become devoid. And in the same way, by developing wholesomeness, one is giving no chance for unwholesomeness that had not arisen in the past to arise. So in this way, by developing wholesomeness, one is said to be overcoming two sides of unwholesomeness, especially the kind of unwholesomeness that has knowledge involved will be able to overcome unwholesomeness. So it is said that the wholesomeness that has knowledge involved has the quality of cutting the unwholesomeness. That's why, according to the definition, kusa together with la, cutting, becomes kusala. So let us look at the meaning of word by word, combining with the practice. Let us look at the meaning by practice. So before bending of the hand arises, there will be series of intention to bend, and series of intention to bend arise and pass away. And because of the series of intention to bend, the actual bending stage by stage arises. And the actual bending stage by stage also arises and pass away. So because of series of intention to bend, the actual bending stage by stage arise. So by knowing this intention to bend and the actual bending, by noting, one will come to understand the cause and effect coming to dissolution. So by knowing the dissolution of these cause and effect, then one is said to be fulfilling Satipatthana practice. So at the moment of knowing the series of intention to bend, as well as actual bending step by step, if you analyze, if one analyzes, one will realize that there are 5 factors involved, and it is called Paṇḍitā Mekka. 5 factors leading to the Nibbana. So the path of these 5 factors leading to Nibbana is involved in the noting. So in order to know the series of intention to bend and the actual bending, one needs to note the presently arising object with ardent effort. So one should not note in a cold manner, but one should be active, alert, and ready to note the object. So when the person is able to exert ardent effort, the noting mind will stick onto the object. When the noting mind sticks onto the object, sati, mindfulness, has developed. And the noting mind will fall calm and collected on the object of meditation. putting effort in the practice, asserting effort in the practice, this effort does not accept kilesa, defilements from arising. And sati, mindfulness, protects so that defilements cannot enter into the mind. So at that moment, when the yogi is able to note the presently arising object, the mind is not agitated by raga or dosa, but the mind will be calm and peaceful. So at that moment, one is said to be overcoming the kind of kilesa, unwholesomeness that had arisen in the past. So at the moment of noting, the mind is free from unwholesomeness and defilement that has arisen in the past. So in this way, one is said to be overcoming unwholesomeness and defilement that had arisen in the past. And also, when the person is able to note the object, one does not give any chance for unwholesomeness to arise. So in this way, viriya, effort, is able to overcome two sides of unwholesomeness and defilement. The unwholesomeness and defilement that had arisen in the past will be overcome, and unwholesomeness and defilement will have no chance to arise in the future. So in this way, by knowing series of intention to bend and the actual bending stage by stage, by understanding it as cause and effect, and by understanding it distinctly at the moment of noting, the person is said to be eradicating the defilement. So it is not removing the defilement permanently, but the defilements become weakened. The defilements become weaker and weaker. In Pali, it is called tanukarana, weakening the defilement moment by moment, and finally, the defilements will be uprooted to the point of no return. So by being able to note the presently arising object, by understanding the cause and effect, whenever one comes to think of it, one will not think of it as person or being, and one will not think of it with lust, greed, or anger. So in this way, defilement will be overcome. So if the person is not mindful, then one will not know the truth. So not being mindful, the person will take of the object. He is handsome, she is beautiful, he is nice looking, she is nice looking, and so on. And whenever one thinks back of past experiences, just like a cow ruminating, then the raga, lust, will arise by leaps and bounds. And when the person recalls, as if looking back to picture, if one has taken some kind of object as taking picture, then whenever she recalls and visualizes, then the kilesa defilements will resurface. So by noting the nama-rupa phenomena that are arising as cause and effect, these greed, hatred will have no chance to arise. So in this way, one is said to be overcoming the defilement momentarily. So not only that the defilement will become weaker and weaker, but also the defilement will also lose momentum. And in this way, latent or dormant form of defilement will be overcome. So the kind of wholesomeness and defilement that had arisen in the past will become devoid. And also, by reflecting one's experience, such as wanting to kill, wanting to hurt others, wanting to steal, these defilements will have no chance to arise. So, and also the kind of unwholesomeness and defilement that had not arisen in this life will have no chance to arise. So just as the grass, which has one sharp edge, will be able to cut one side of the hand. If the grass has two edges, it will cut two sides of the hand. So the Anapana akusala means the kind of unwholesomeness one had not done in this life. Because there are a lot of existences throughout the samsara, Anapana akusala means the kind of unwholesomeness one has not done in this present life. And connecting with new objects, the kind of kilesa, the kind of unwholesomeness that has not arisen concerning with the new object, has no chance to arise. So in this way, Priyuttana kilesa, obsessive form of defilement, will be overcome by being able to note the presently arising object. And these kilesa will be eradicated. So it is not only tanukarana, reducing or weakening the defilement, but finally these defilements and unwholesomeness will totally be eradicated. So by this way, one will understand how efficient wholesomeness is. So by accumulating wholesomeness, there will be samma vaca, samma kammanta, and samma ajiva, right speech, right action, right livelihood. In this way, wrongful speech, wrongful action, and wrongful livelihood will be overcome. So having cetana, volition to refrain, these videkama kilesa, transgressive form of defilement, has no chance to arise. So the kind of transgressive defilement that has arisen in the past will be overcome, and the defilement, the transgressive form of defilement, has no chance to arise in the future as well. So in this way, transgressive form of defilement will be overcome. So two sides of transgressive defilement, the defilement that had arisen in the past, the defilement that has not arisen. So both kinds of transgressive defilement will be overcome. So if the person is able to overcome the defilement that has arisen in the past, then it is said one side is cut. And if one also gives no chance for an arisen defilement to arise, then it is cutting the other side. So just as the grass is able to cut two sides of the hand, in the same way, wholesomeness has the quality to cut and remove two kinds of unwholesomeness and defilements, the ones that had arisen in the past, and also giving no chance for unarisen defilements and unwholesomeness from arising. So now that the yogis are practicing, so at this stage it is Kama Vajara Kusala, and this Bhavana Kusala Sita, the wholesomeness gained from mental development practice, is Kama Vajara Kusala. So by practicing Sila, Samadhi and Panya, one is said to be accumulating this Kama Vajara Kusala, so that the gross, medium and refined form of defilement will become weaker and weaker. By developing Vipassana Jnana, by developing insight knowledge, one is said to be overcoming defilement momentarily, so that these defilements will become weaker and weaker. And finally, when Lokottara Bhavana Kusala, supramundane unwholesomeness arises, the defilements will totally be uprooted. So at the preliminary stage, one with Lokiya Bhavana, mundane kind of Bhavana Kusala, one is said to be weakening the defilements. So by weakening the defilements with Lokiya Bhavana, and finally when one attains Magga Jnana, path knowledge, supramundane knowledge, then the person can eradicate defilements to the point of no return. When the person gets to this stage, she will never be morally degraded anymore. So she is said to be eradicating the inferior states that had arisen in the past. So with Lokottara Bhavana, with supramundane knowledge, one can totally eradicate the inferior state that had arisen in the past, and also one will not give any chance in order for these inferior states to arise in the future. So in this way, supramundane knowledge, supramundane bhavana can overcome two kinds of kilesa. Anupana kilesa, the defilement that had not arisen, will be overcome, and the kind of kilesa that had arisen in the past will also be overcome. So one can imagine how powerful kusala is. So by noting continuously, one will be developing knowledge, and one is said to be overcoming the unwholesomeness, both kind of unwholesomeness, uppana and anupana, that are inferior. If the person is able to note one noting per second, then in 1 minute there will be 60 notings. In 5 minutes there will be 300 times. 1 hour there will be 3060 times. The person is able to overcome the defilements by noting. So bhavana means to make arise what has not arisen, and to increase and to develop and cultivate, so that the mind will become from small to big, from tender to ripe, from less to many, it is called bhavana. So bhavana means developing, cultivating the mind so that the mind will become developed, cultivated, and the mind will become from small to big, from tender to ripe, and from less to many. So one has to cultivate bhavana over and over again, not just once or twice, but one should repeatedly cultivate bhavana, so that the developing of the wholesomeness, it is called kusala bhavana, development of wholesomeness. So one can imagine how precious kusala is. So one should cultivate bhavana so that the momentum will build up. When one has this opportunity to practice high-class wholesomeness so that his or her body, speech and mind will become pure, clean. Having this opportunity to practice this high-class practice, one needs to practice respectfully, carefully, diligently, attentively on their own. So nobody else should need to urge them or to give incitement to them to practice. So they should practice respectfully, meticulously, attentively by themselves. So it is no good if other people has to keep on encouraging, urging you to practice. So during the retreat, one should be practicing continuously without stopping. So apart from sleeping hour, one should practice, one should be mindful of presently arising object continuously. So each and every yogi has the duty to be mindful of the presently arising object continuously all the time. So yogis who are here for practice, they come to the meditation retreat with aim and objective to purify their body, speech and mind. So it is very important that you work to reach your goal. So there can be either refined form of appamada or pamada. So when practicing the high-class wholesomeness, if the person is failing or negligent to practice respectfully, carefully, in Pali it is called asakaja kariya. If the person fails to practice respectfully, carefully, then he, she is negligent and it is pamada. And if the person is not working continuously, asataja kariya, then he, she is said to be pamada. So rather than practicing continuously, if the person is stopping, resting in between, without noting continuously, then the person is compared to a chameleon. So chameleon is a kind of lizard that lives on tree. So chameleons, they do not go from one place to another continuously, but they stop, they gaze around, go again. That's why a yogi who does not practice continuously, without any stop is compared to a chameleon. So in Pali, it is called Anattita Kriya. It means that one practicing with stops or resting in between. So when practicing high-class wholesomeness, one should practice respectfully so that succeeding mindfulness and preceding mindfulness will be continuous without having gaps in between. So the noting should be continuous and the yogi should be practicing without any stop, continuously. So if the person is able to practice respectfully, continuously, without any gaps in between, there will be apamada. So in this way, yogi should compare his or her experience with the text, and you should find out whether you are practicing according to the text, and you should confess yourself whether you have pamada or apamada. So Sayadaw said one should admit, one should confess openly to oneself. So if one is deceiving oneself, then it will be a failure or loss. So if the person is not practicing respectfully, there will be a loss. One will be losing the high quality kind of wholesomeness. One will be losing a strong, efficient kind of wholesomeness. So by practicing respectfully, continuously, without any gaps or stops in between, one will be making profit. So the yogis who are here to practice, they come to the retreat to profit, to have profit in life. So it is very important that the yogis do not go back home with a loss. So they should go back home with a profit. So yogi who practices meticulously, thoroughly and respectfully can gain the Dhamma within one bending or one stretching. So even in a slight moment, even in a very short moment, one can attain the Dhamma if she practices meticulously, respectfully. So Sayadaw will explain on it tomorrow. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.